You ever get that, like, fight or flight feeling? You know that jolt when you have to make a choice fast?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, imagine that, but times 1,000. You're facing down a life or death scenario, the pressure's on. Some people, in those moments, experience something really strange. They call it the third man factor. And that's what we're diving deep into today.
And it's more than just a spooky story, right? We're talking about countless survivors, people who stared death in the face, and they describe this presence, this comforting companion that appears when they need it most.
It's wild, right? And the stories, they're incredible. One of the most famous, it comes from the explorer Ernest Shackleton, his adventures in Antarctica back in the early 1900s.
Oh, Shackleton. That's a story and a half. His ship, the Endurance, completely trapped in ice. What he and his crew went through is the stuff of legends.
Absolutely. Talk about resilience. They ended up trekking across South Georgia, and I mean, brutal conditions, glaciers, mountains, you name it. 36 hours, nonstop. And get this, in his book, South, from 1919, he mentions this feeling. Like, there were 4 people on that journey, not just the 3 of them. He even writes, "It seemed to me often that we were 4, not 3.
And it wasn't just a fleeting thing either. It's like this presence, it was so vivid for him. Even Shackleton himself said it didn't make sense, but he couldn't shake the feeling.
Yeah.
It was like a fourth companion right there with them in the thick of it.
Okay, now that's giving me chills. But get this, it's not just Shackleton. We're talking adventurers, people who've been pushed to the limit. They have similar stories.
Oh, totally. Picture this. 1933, mountaineer Frank Smythe, he's trying to conquer Everest. And we all know that's no walk in the park, right?
You're telling me. I get winded just thinking about it.
Right, so Smythe, he's on this solo climb, battling the elements, barely any oxygen. And he keeps having this feeling. It's like someone else is there, climbing alongside him, the whole way.
Wait, seriously. The whole time, did he at least offer this mystery climbing buddy a snack?
Well, funny you should say that. He actually described trying to share his Kendall mint cake with his presence.
He what? Okay, that's both hilarious and spooky. I think he would passed out from altitude sickness after that.
It is a pretty funny detail, I'll give you that. But it highlights something important. These stories, as strange as they seem, they're not isolated incidents. Different people, different times, different dangers, but the same experience. Makes you wonder if there's something bigger going on, right? Something beyond how we understand how the mind deals with extreme stress.
And that's where this whole third man factor comes in. It's not just a fancy name. It's describing a real phenomenon.
Exactly. John Geiger, he wrote a book back in 2009 called, you guessed it, The Third Man Factor. And he really digs into all this. All these stories, there's not just one-offs. There's a bigger pattern here.
Even literature picked up on this. I mean, T.S. Eliot, in his poem The Wasteland, there's that line, "Who is the third who walks always beside you?" That was inspired by Shackleton's experience, wasn't it?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Eliot, he was so captivated by Shackleton's story, he worked it right into his poetry. Just goes to show you, these experiences, they stick with us. Make us wonder about the mysteries that are still out there.
So we've got these chilling accounts, but what about science? What's the explanation for this third man factor?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We got all these stories, people swearing up and down this is real, and then science comes in like, hold on a minute.
What's the verdict?
It's not so simple. I mean, the most common theory you'll hear is hallucination, right? Your brain's pushed to the limit, all that stress, maybe some sensory deprivation going on, and boom, it starts showing you things.
So like a mirage, but in your mind, basically.
Kinda, yeah. But there's a catch. See, in a lot of these stories, the third man, it's not just there, it's helping. Giving comfort, advice, even practical stuff that helps them survive. If it was just a random brain glitch, why would it be so, I don't know, helpful?
Good point. I think a hallucination would be more likely to make things worse, not better, especially in a life or death situation.
Right. So another theory goes a bit deeper. What if this third man factor, it's like evolution, but for your mind? A coping mechanism hardwired in. Your brain's freaking out right on the edge, so it conjures up a friend, a source of strength to get you through.
So like an internal rescue team.
Exactly. An inner life raft you never knew you had. And this actually ties into a really wild idea called the bicameral mind. You ever heard of that?
It rings a bell, but I couldn't explain it.
So basically, it's this theory that our brains, they're like 2 chambers, right? One that's talking, your conscious thoughts, and one that's listening, a deeper, more primal part. And the third man in this theory could be that listening part stepping in, taking over when the talking part is overwhelmed.
Okay, now my head's spinning. So we've got hallucinations, coping mechanisms, 2-chambered brains. It's like the more we learn, the less we know.
Pretty much.
So are there any brave scientists out there actually trying to study this in a lab, I mean?
Tough one, honestly. How do you recreate those conditions ethically? Hey, we're going to drop you on a mountaintop, see what your brain does. Not going to fly with the ethics board.
Yeah, I can see that being a tough sell. But here's something interesting. Even though it's hard to get a scientific grip on this third man idea, it's actually found its way into the therapy.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Psychologists are picking up on this,
Yeah.
especially for people dealing with trauma. There's this concept, the cultivated inner character. It's about finding that inner strength, that guidance, a lot like what people describe with the third man.
So even if we don't totally get the science, this third man, it could hold some answers for helping people through tough times.
It's a powerful idea, for sure. Like, what if by understanding this inner companion, we unlock something? New ways to heal, to bounce back.
Amazing. To think something that comes out of these life or death stories could be so hopeful, for everyday life. So, wow, we've gone from frozen wastelands to the top of Everest, all chasing this third man mystery. I don't know about you, but I feel like more than answers, we've just uncovered more questions.
That's part of what makes it so fascinating, though, right? I mean, in this day and age, we think we've got it all figured out, but then something like the third man factor pops up and reminds us there's still so much we don't know, especially when it comes to what's going on inside our own heads.
It's humbling in a way, like we've only scratched the surface of what our brains are capable of.
Totally. And it makes you wonder, what if this third man, this presence, what if it's not just some weird anomaly? What if we all have this well of strength inside us, just waiting to be tapped?
That's a pretty powerful thought, like a hidden reserve of resilience we've all got, but just don't know how to access. This whole deep dive has really given me a lot to think about.
Me too. But maybe that's the point, right? Maybe it's not about having all the answers. Maybe it's the not knowing, the mystery of it all that keeps us curious, keeps us open to those possibilities.
You know what? I think you're onto something. The third man factor, it reminds us that there's still so much out there we don't understand. About ourselves, about the world. It's an invitation to keep asking questions, keep exploring. Who knows? Maybe we all do have a third man waiting in the wings, ready to guide us on our own journeys. And that's something to think about, isn't it?